Hey y'all, today we're making homemade instant mashed potatoes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need obviously are some potatoes. So I am using russet potatoes. I have a 5-pound bag of these. That's just what I had. You can use whatever kind of potatoes you like. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this pretty much like you're making homemade mashed potatoes. We're going to peel our potatoes. And side note, y'all, some of y'all gave me much grief in the comments about me peeling potatoes with a knife because I leave so much potato behind because, you cut off a thicker layer. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to just peel these the regular way. Y'all see my struggle. Y'all see my struggle because I don't usually do them this way. But I thought I'll do it this way just to see if it is any easier for me. I mean, I'm just one of those people. I'm going to do whatever works for me. So I just thought, let me just try it. And I don't know if this is the way that I'll continue to do it. It took me so much longer to peel these potatoes than it normally does. And I felt like I was going to slice my hand every time I sliced down these potatoes or peeled down those potatoes. So I don't know. Was I doing it wrong? Somebody let me know. Anyway, so you're going to peel your potatoes and then wash them real good. And then you're going to dice them up. Now, if you want to just throw the whole potato in there whole, I mean, I guess you could do that if you wanted to, but to make life a little bit easier, make them cook a little bit quicker, I dice mine up, but you can do whatever. And then I just make sure for anybody who is new to cooking, I try to make sure I include everybody. So I know some of y'all are like, we know how to do this, but maybe somebody doesn't. So I'm leaving it in here. So you're just going to, look, don't drop them all over the counter like I did, but just peel your potatoes, dice them up, and then put them in your pot and cover them with a couple inches of water. You're going to put those on the stove and boil those until they are fork tender. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that means. That just means if you stick a fork in it, it just falls apart. Okay, that's all it is. The fork just goes right into your potato. So once you get that all done, once your potatoes are cooked, we're going to dump those right back into the pot we cooked them in, or you can dump them into a bowl if you have a pot that you're worried about messing up, because we're going to mix them right in this pot. I just didn't want to mess up another dish, but you certainly can put them in a bowl if you need to, because I know I do have some pots that I can't put metal down in like this. So I'm just going to use my hand mixer and I'm going to mix these until they're smooth. If they seem a little bit dry, just put a teeny bit of water in there until you can make them kind of creamy looking and smooth. Now you do not want to add milk or butter or sour cream or anything to these potatoes. You can go ahead and season them if you want to, but I'm somebody that kind of changes up my seasonings a lot, so I just left them plain. And I will just season mine when I cook them. So now what we're going to do is I have these silicone liners for my dehydrator. And you can use parchment paper if you don't have these. But these are very nice. If you're doing a lot of dehydrating, I would highly recommend them. I'll link anything that I'm using. I'll link it down below for y'all if it's something I bought on Amazon. So now what you're going to do, like I said, you can use a silicone liner or you can use just a sheet of parchment paper. Either one will work. Whatever works for you will be fine. You just want to try to spread these out into a pretty even layer. Now, my dehydrator isn't very big, so I did my layers kind of thick, which means that it took a lot longer for mine to dehydrate. If you spread this on super thin, like if you have a dehydrator that's big enough for you to do that, then they'll dehydrate a lot quicker. But I didn't have that, so I had to work with what I had. And I pointed out at the beginning of the video that I started with a 5-pound bag of potatoes because once I filled all of my liners up, I had potatoes left over. So that's why you'll see in the written recipe in the description box that I say 4 pounds of potatoes. because I didn't use all 5 pounds for what I made. Now, you can certainly use a lot more if your dehydrator will hold a lot more, but if you do the recipe that I'm going to show you in a minute, like the add-ins that I put in, you'll just need to adjust that if you have more potatoes. So that is, I'm just showing y'all what I had left over. So like I said, I just based this on about 4 pounds of potatoes. So you're just going to dehydrate these at 125 degrees Fahrenheit for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. And sometimes it may take a little longer if they're super thick. It's going to depend on how thin it is, your dehydrator, the environment you live in. All those things are factors. But you need to let this go, even if it takes you 2 days, until everything is completely dry. Now, about halfway through, see how I picked that up? About halfway through, you will be able to pick it up even though it's not dry all the way. And I picked mine up and I flipped them over. And that way, that bottom part, since mine was so thick, I wanted to make sure that bottom part had a chance to dry as well. So you can certainly do that. Or you can just keep going, and it take longer to, however long it takes you to dry them. But like I said, you can see mine are pretty thick. So now what we're going to have to do is get these broken down into the potato flakes, if you will, okay? Now, I'm going to use my food processor because when I did these potatoes, I did this before I bought my fancy new blender. And I knew that my old blender probably would not hold up to these potatoes because mine is so thick. You see me struggling to break it. Now, they're completely dry, but it just took some manhandling to break it because it was so thick. It almost looks like I'm bending it, but it's not. It's breaking. It's just hard to break. So you're going to want to do this in batches because obviously not everything you dehydrated is going to fit in there at once. And then you're just going to blend, food or process or whatever you want to call it until you get this broken down as small as you can. Now, I'm going to say something else. Doing this in a food processor or a blender even, I have not been able to get mine to completely powder in one of these big machines, okay? Now, some of it will powder, you'll see in a minute, but it doesn't powder completely. And I wanted my mashed potatoes to be instant potatoes. I didn't want these to have to cook on the stove to rehydrate. So I'm going to break mine down as far as I can. I'm going to show you everything I do. Look at the potato puff, y'all. The potato puff of smoke. But if you'll see, I'm gonna show y'all. I'm gonna show y'all. I still have some pretty big pieces. Now you can put it right in your jar like this if you want to, but just know that if you have these thick pieces of potato, it's going to take longer to rehydrate those. Okay, it's gonna take it longer. So again, I wanted mine to be something I could just add some water to and go. I didn't want to have to sit there and wait. So that is why I'm breaking mine down to a powder form, in case you were curious. So what I'm doing now, I have my fine mesh strainer and I'm just like, you see me rubbing those around. I'm trying to get all of that fine powder out of there so I can reprocess the bigger pieces, okay? So I'm just going to keep going until I get it processed as far as I want it to. Now, I started out again with these bigger pieces and I could not get them broken down in my food processor. I'm going to show y'all. Y'all are going to see. You can see right there really, but I'm going to hold it up in a second. But you see how big some of those pieces are? Well, some of this is going to rehydrate very quickly and some of it is not because I have powder and then I have these big flakes. But I thought, it'll be fine. I talked myself into it, y'all. So I put it in my jar. That is a pint jar, by the way. It's a 2-cup jar. So that's what this made, just a little shy, in this form, a little shy of 2 cups. And I thought, well, I'm good to go, right? And then I changed my mind. As we do, as we have the right to do, if that's what we want to do. So I decided that I really wanted this to be powdery. So I got out my little coffee bean grinder. I'm showing y'all again how big those pieces are and look how hard those pieces are. They're too big. So I got my little coffee bean grinder or spice grinder, whatever you want to call it. These do come with a booklet that tells you how long to hold your button down to get it to whatever consistency you want, by the way. This has been one of the best investments I've made since I started dehydrating. I highly recommend using one of these if you're going to dehydrate and make like spices and things. This thing is fantastic, and it breaks it down, I mean, to a fine powder if that's where you want it to be. I will link one similar to this down in the description box so you can see what it is, but I got mine at Walmart, okay? So this is what it looks like once you get it to that fine powder, and that's where I wanted it at. And now I'm going to season this up, not season it, but I'm going to add some things to it because like I said, I want mine to be sort of a just add water situation. And when I make mashed potatoes, normally I add a little bit of sour cream, some milk, and butter to mine. So I thought, let me cut out some of that because I have sour cream powder and I have milk powder. So I added 1.5 tablespoons of the sour cream powder, and I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of the milk powder. You do not have to do this. You can leave yours just the potatoes, and when you rehydrate them, you can add milk and sour cream and butter and all that stuff at that point, okay? So don't feel like you can't do this if you don't have these powders. This is just, like I said, my way of making it super easy. And when I did these, I also did not have any butter powder, so I do have to add butter when I make them in a minute. And y'all know I'm going to make them for y'all. But if you have butter powder, you can certainly use that, and then you literally will only have to add water and you have mashed potatoes. And of course, they're going to taste like homemade mashed potatoes because they are homemade mashed potatoes. So you get the convenience of instant potatoes with the quickness and the convenience of instant potatoes, but the taste of homemade mashed potatoes. So, I mean, it's just a win all the way around. So that is what it ended up looking like once I added everything back in there. And now we have a jar of instant potatoes, and that's 4 pounds of potatoes in that jar. So, you know, a little bit goes a long way. So I wanted to show y'all how this works, okay? So I started out adding 2 tablespoons of my potato powder in here. I was going to add the third, and then I said, let me hold off. Let me just see what it does. Now, ideally, you're going to add boiling water to this. You need to do boiling water. It's just going to work better. Plus, you want your mashed potatoes hot, right? But I just heated some up in the microwave for convenience, just for the sake of this video so I could show y'all. I added about 1/2 cup of water, and I thought they were a little bit too loose for my taste. They will thicken up as they sit, but I went ahead and added the 3rd tablespoon. And then as I went along, I ended up I mixed them all up and everything, and then after they sat for about a minute, I added a little bit more water to thin them up just a little bit because they did get pretty thick. So in the recipe down below that I always do for y'all, it's going to say 3 tablespoons of the potato powder and 3/4 of a cup of water. But start with a 1/2 cup because everybody likes their potato consistency different. You know, I don't know how you like your potatoes. So start with a 1/2 cup and then just go up from there. But that is what they look like. I mean, they're mashed potatoes, y'all, and they taste delicious. So all you need to do now is add a little bit of butter, some salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, whatever you season your potatoes up with, and you have super quick instant mashed potatoes that obviously taste exactly like you just stood there and made them homemade. So I hope that y'all are going to give this one a try. That is all I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.